Okay. This is part 5. Expending mana through spring prayer. This place is like a ghost town, I said. Our past trips to Bindewald had been anything but peaceful. First a bunch of shrieking ladies, then feasts and dinner matches to entertain Duggelfelger's knights. Now it was a barren land almost entirely devoid of greenery. As expected, Ferdinand replied, the estate was closed, and the servants moved to a neighboring city. It will remain this way until you assign a new Geeb. I couldn't do that until after the Archduke Conference, where the Zent wouldn't formally recognize me as a new Ob Ahrensbach. Well, I could, but people would view it as a massive slight against Eglantine. It was much safer to wait. Still, I said, if we don't appoint someone soon, the commoners will suffer the consequences. Spring prayer and the harvest festival needed to be performed, and noble tax collectors had to be sent out, or the commoners wouldn't be able to pay their taxes. It wouldn't be their fault, but they would face punishment nonetheless. I shall prepare several viable candidates for your review after the Archduke Conference. For now, form your high base and start moving the attendants and chefs. Right. I made Rainbow Leslie and started to transform him, trying to picture the inside of a large camper. To ensure maximum comfort, I added as many beds as we had people. How's this, I asked when I was done showing off my double-decker bust-sized creation. Now everyone can sleep peacefully. Ferdinand tapped his temple and made further demands. He wanted separate floors for the men and women, a separate place for the servants, higher ceilings, and more width than even the largest camper could provide. By the time I was done, Leslie looked more like a house. Ferdinand, I don't think this even counts as a vehicle anymore. Was it seriously still a high beast? I was starting to wonder where people draw the line when Ferdinand gave a contented nod and said, as abnormal as it looks, it should serve its purpose. Abnormal? Ha! The pot's calling the kettle black. Begin preparing food and making the beds, Ferdinand instructed the others. If we need water, there is a well nearby. Rosemary and I shall take our guards and start restoring the land. I put down face stones to ensure my high beast wouldn't disappear, then took the chalice and climbed under Ferdinand's white lion, leaving the chefs and attendants behind. We would spend the morning replenishing the northeastern towns around the summer estate, then work our way south after lunch. Let us hurry to the first farming town, I said once we were airborne. Not yet, Ferdinand replied, taking us past the one closest to us. We should prioritize land away from the settlements. But why? The towns come first, don't they? The best way to improve the harvest was to restore the land closest to the farmers. It didn't make sense to do anything else. Not this time. If we focus on the farming towns, the mana will attract hordes of starving Fabies. We should replenish the most rural areas first if we want to avoid casualties. Ah, I said, finally understanding him. The Fabies were as famished as anyone. In that case, let us hurry to the forest and mountains. My man is starting to spit out of the chalice. Ferdinand peered down to see, then immediately sped up. As soon as we reached our destination, I poured some of the rainbow liquid out of my chalice. The earth below us darkened, and patches of green sprouted all around us as the land returned to its original appearance. My normal mana wouldn't have been able to accomplish this, not without a prayer to the gods. It would only have enlarged the hungry Fae beasts and Fae plants. Divine power sure is something else. The changing scenery rendered me speechless. I wanted nothing more than to keep admiring it, but my arms started to tremble. Uh-oh, Ferdinand. My arms are tired from holding the chalice. Endure it for a little while longer, until fourth bell. I'll do my best, but I might drop it. Dyeing an instrument with one's mana made it feel almost weightless, but the chalice was still a nightmare to hold. It was surprisingly large, about 80 centimeters tall, and slowly sapped every ounce of my stamina. Though I managed to hold out until fourth bell, and thanks in part to Ferdinand, I wanted to scream that I'd reached my limit. My hands quivered and my already weak grip strength was now practically non-existent. Our trip had drained some of my mana and restored vast swaths of land, but we would absolutely need to rethink our approach. We returned to Leslie for lunch. Hartman had gone back ahead of us and was regaling the attendants with an overly animated speech. It was extraordinary, the descent of a true goddess. Without question, the divine avatar shone brighter than the sun, exuding the power of the gods, and quenched the barren earth with her omni-elemental mana. Geduld wet the soil. Blondfoot visited with a profusion of sprouts, and Anwalks grew them with... Hey, Armid, is this really the time? Elisleda interjected. Lady Rosemary needs to rest. If you'll excuse me, Hartman, Grisha said, though I am eager to know what my lady has been up to, serving her comes first. My attendants escaped with practiced ease, lightly chastising Hartman before heading straight to work. Sergius wasn't so fortunate. His eyes darted all over the place as he stumbled through one-on-one conversation with the raving scholar. Ferdinand, should we save him, I asked. Justice is approaching them now. We can leave the matter to him. Ferdinand was right. Justice was already marching to his fellow retainer's rescue. He took the plate Sergius was carrying and returned to us without a word. That wasn't saving him, I muttered. That was leaving him to die. An attendant's priority is serving his lord, right? Stay strong, Sergius. Cheering him on in my heart, I turned to the plates Lazletta had set in front of me. Steam billowed from the freshly made food. Lazletta leaned closer to me, inspecting my face. You look tired, Lady Rosemine. Carrying the chalice was exhausting. Could we fasten it to my stomach before I set out again? Then I should only need to rest my hands against it. Fasten it to your stomach? Lazletta paused. She must have been imagining it. Then gave Ferdinand a queer look. I continued to explain before he could shoot me down. It won't look elegant, but what other choice do we have? I am physically incapable of using it gracefully. Yes, this morning made that clear, Ferdinand mused. How fares your mana? Replenishing the land must have worked wonders for you if you are proposing something so crude. Was I the only one who didn't care about elegance? This was supposed to be an emergency. That was why we put naming my new city on the back burner. Less abundant than before, I replied. If we keep up our current pace and account for how much mana I regain each night, I should run out in 5 days. 5 days? Have you forgotten that a single morning completely drained your stamina? Accounting for that is your job, not mine. Ferdinand can glare for as long as he wanted. He was my head doctor, and it was his belief that replenishing the duchy was the best way to drain my mana. I was just following orders. In other words, we need a less tiring method. Yes. Ferdinand pondered while he ate, searching for another solution. He must not have found one, though, as I spent that afternoon with the chalice tied to my stomach, restoring the land as we had done that morning. So they did go with her option. I'm so tired, I groaned. Over the course of the afternoon, I'd poured mana into the rest of Bindewald in the province of Konowitz to the south. Now I was slumped over on the White Lion, taking us back to my panda bus, too exhausted to even sit up. I would probably have fallen by now, if not for Ferdinand acting as my backrest. It is your own fault for getting so excited about Konowitz, he replied. You expended stamina for no good reason. My fault? How was I meant to stay calm when the province has such a vast ocean? You have seen the ocean countless times since coming to Ahrensbach, from the castle, sure, but never up close. And thanks to my divine power, the once murky waters turned clear blue and sparkling. Fish leaped out of the brine. It doesn't even compare to anything I've seen before. The fishermen at sea had rejoiced and waved at us from their boats. I'd returned the gesture and given the province even more mana as a show of my appreciation. Ferdinand was right that I'd neglected to preserve my stamina, but why couldn't I celebrate the birth of my fish paradise? We returned to Rainbow Lestia and got ready for dinner. The retainers who had accompanied us gave Ella and Hugo our spoils, fresh fish we'd purchased from the fishermen. I had planned to stash the ingredients in a time-stopping tool and enjoy them on the road. Here you are, Lady Rosemine, and this is for you, Lord Ferdinand. As Archducal family members, Ferdinand and I ate first. Once we were done, some of our knights would take their meal in another room, while our other retainers continued to serve and guard, awaiting their turn. I tried to eat it quickly so as to not delay them. My hastily devoured meal soon turned into an after-dinner tea, which I sipped while waiting for my retainers to finish eating. Eckert and Lorenz were the first to join us. The attendants refreshed our drinks one last time before leaving to have some food. Lounging on one of my panda house's sofas, I took another drink of tea. I waited for Ferdinand to do the same before launching my attack. Now let us discuss my library city. Did you not just claim to be exhausted? Ferdinand retorted. We should avoid any subjects that might tire you further. The salted fish Ella hurried to prepare has revitalized me. Besides, did you not promise we would discuss this tonight? I've been looking forward to it all day. Ferdinand touched my forehead and wrist to inspect my health, then begrudgingly sat back down and produced sound blockers. Your ideas were Venezia and Alexandria, correct? Both have relatively normal pronunciations for someone with your naming sense. Where did they come from? Your world of dreams, I assume? Relatively? That's a rude way to put it. As I recall, when we were deciding on your noble name, not a single one of your suggestions made sense. I averted my eyes out of spite. In preparation for my noble persona, I proposed several names that I could use instead of mine. I'd put so much thought into them, trying to come up with something that encapsulated my reappearing stronger than ever before, only for Ferdinand to tell me they were all unusable. The conversation stood out clearly in my mind, but not the circumstances surrounding it. There must be more to this. In fact, what drove me to become a noble in the first place. Delia, Dirt, Count Bindewald, Besenwatz, faces from the temple arose in my mind. I remembered someone protecting me, but not the first thing about them. The gaps in my memory caused an uncomfortable tickle in my chest. Why did I join the temple? Oh, right, to read the Bible and gain access to the Bookworm. Even my recollection of the events leading up to my entering the temple was full of gaps. At most, I remembered desperately seeking books after being reborn into a world without any. Rosemine? Ferdinand's voice brought me back to my senses. I could dig through my memories later. It probably wasn't smart to think about something so anxiety-inducing while I was still under the influence of divine mana. The names, I said right. Alexandria was an ancient city. It had its own massive library, replete with gardens, and gathered reading material from all across the world. You could say it was exactly what I aimed to achieve. Venetia, meanwhile, was a merchant city that had more bookstores than anywhere else once Gutenberg helped proliferate the printing industry. I want my new duchy to have just as many books, with trade bringing in more by the day. Ferdinand thought for a moment, then said with some trepidation, I would not recommend Venetia. It sounds too much like a word used in Lanzanov. Even if we claimed it was taken from another language in the world of the gods, it would surely be misunderstood in ways that would trouble us. Well, I can't argue with that logic. I suppose that the English name Venice was an option, but it didn't sit right with me on a mystical, aesthetic level. Are we going with Alexandria, then? Alexandria. I would rather the name indicate some manner of connection to Ehrenfest to make it easily apparent that an Ehrenfest Archduke candidate claimed the foundation. My first thought was Erandria, but I quickly dismissed it. The name sounded more like a strange food product than anything else. Consider that a lesson for you, Rosemine. Don't arbitrarily combine two words. I must insist on Alexandria, I said. The original city had gardens full of rare specimens, an abundance of research documents, and received travelers from all over. It perfectly suits a duchy being built around your lab, my library, and the Gutenberg's printing. She's not wrong here. Ferdinand sighed, having seen right through my desperate scramble to justify the name. You sought my opinion, yet it appeared to have already reached a verdict. Very well. You claimed the duchy to begin with, so I shall accept whatever name you desire, assuming it is not outrageously offensive. I thank you ever so much. Let us start planning the construction of Alexandria. A slight frown creased Ferdinand's brow. You seem more attached to your previous world than usual. Because of my lost memories, I'd assume. The most I remember about my days as a commoner are dipping my toes in merchantry and spending time in the temple. My thoughts of the past are mostly from when I was a Rano, and reading was more important to me than absolutely anything else. My days as mine were a blur, but my memories since becoming Rosemine seem mostly untouched. If, as Ferdinand claimed, Mestanora had severed any memories of everyone and everything I cared about more than books, then I must have treasured a lot from when I was a commoner. My hairpin craftsperson and dyer were apparently included, but what did that mean? Who had they been to me? Well, it isn't impacting my day-to-day life, at least. Ferdinand shook his head. There have been many occasions today when you have said or done things I would never have expected from you, likely because your core memories have been removed. This is sure to cause problems in the future. I was compelled to ask for examples but couldn't get the words out. The last thing I wanted was for Ferdinand to turn around and start rejecting me. Instead, I smiled and changed the subject. There's no point dwelling on it now, is there? We can't make any headway on my lost memories until we rid me of this divine power. On a more important note, what should the new duchy's color be? In the past, it matched the divine color of the country gate, so maybe we should go with something close to black? Pure black was still associated with the royals, so it would probably be best to avoid that. Ferdinand eyed me carefully. If we plan to take that approach, we should advise the sovereignty to change its color to white in accordance with its move to the Royal Academy. Zens historically wore white, in case you were unaware. If we announce that, we'll need to wear white ourselves. It had once been the norm for Zen candidates to dress in white after obtaining their Book of Mestanora so that Abiglabe wouldn't attack them. Huh? Zens and Obs had worn the same color, which explained why High Bishop's robes were also white. Again, Ferdinand shook his head. If we adhere fully to the old ways, then that rule will apply only to you. Lady Eglantine did not obtain her Book of Mestanora, and mine is being kept hidden from the public. I see. I'd much rather it apply to the whole sovereignty. If nobody else in Jurgenschmidt wore white, I would feel like an outcast. I just wanted to set up my library city and then read with all my friends. If you would rather your duchy's color be only close to black, then why not use the color of your hair? Ferdinand asked. You have the same dusky looks as Mestanora, whose flowing tresses had the blessing of the god of darkness. I can think of no better color for her avatar. He reached out and stroked my hair as though it were the most natural thing in the world, then regretfully added, but alas, no longer would the hue stand out against your clothes. Wait, has he always been the kind of person to just reach out and touch someone's hair? I don't know. He does the same thing when he pinches your cheeks. So, has he always been like that and I just never noticed? Am I like Rosemine in some ways? Something the matter, Rosemine? No, nothing. If my hair and clothes blend together, that's fine with me. In a world where all nobles must wear their duchy's colors, such problems are inevitable. Truth be told, I couldn't have been less invested. Ferdinand didn't respond. He brushed a few errant strands out of my eyes. Dude, why are you getting all touchy-feely? As for the crest, I continued, I wish to use Lessie. Ferdinand pulled away at once, his arm recoiling like a snake. Absolutely not. Future generations of Alexandria will need to use your crest. I shall not doom them to bear grunts on their chests for the sake of your strange tastes. If you'd rather not tie your duchy to Air Vest to its name, then at least inherit its lions, or use shoe mills in honor of those library magic tools. I thought a red panda would suit my duchy better than anything else, but Ferdinand disagreed. He rejected the idea so forcefully and moved on so quickly onto proposing alternatives that I already knew he wasn't going to budge on the matter. You told me before that shoe mills are too weak to be used in the duchy's crest. Yes, the ones found in the wild. The magic tools, on the other hand, are exceptionally strong. You need only add face stones to their foreheads to make the distinction clear. Dang it. Given his firm stance before, I'd never expected such an abrupt 180. Do you really hate Leslie that much? You are not the only one who would need to wear that wretched grunt. If you are insistent, ask the opinion of any of your retainers. Not one of them will support you. I put the sound blocker aside and turned to Lorenz and Eckert, who was standing nearby as our guards. Lazletta and some of the others who had finished eating came over to see what I had wanted. Attention, everyone, I called out. Between my panda bus and the library shoe mills, what would you rather see on an Alexandria's crest? They all exchanged looks, then answered in unison, the library shoe mills. The idea sounds delightful, Lazletta added. Perhaps, but Ferdinand once said that a crest should show its duchy's strength, I retorted. Grisha smiled. According to Judith, the scythe-wielding magic tool was remarkably strong. Perhaps we could add a scythe to the crest? Please, no! Oh, I'd much rather give them books, I cried. An excellent idea, Lady Rosemine, Lorenz said, clapping his hands together with a bright smile. That sounds like the perfect crest for your library city. Of course they would say that. Shoe mills and a book, Grisha mused. Given the circumstances, should we have the latter be the Grujashite? It's too detailed and would only cause problems down the line, Eckert replied, dismissing the proposal at once. Yeah, Lorenz added, a duchy not run by the Zent, using the Grujashite in its crest seems a little... Glazletta rested a hand on her cheek. Could we take inspiration from the crest of the Rosemine workshop? Books, ink, and plants? Incorporating those themes might be wise. A most commendable idea, Ferdinand said with a nod. As I stared at them all in confusion, Ferdinand and my retainers made brisk progress in formalizing the crest. They weren't even considering my panda bus anymore. Would using Leslie really be that bad, I asked, but it was already too late. Not one of them even acknowledged my question. Okay, never-ending mana. An overwhelming wave of despair washed over me. Though I'd spent the previous day working as hard as I could, trying desperately to drain my mana, a single night's sleep had put me right back where I started! No! God damn! It was like completing a magnificent sandcastle only to have the tide come in and wash it all away. This is worse because, of course, having more mana in my body meant torturous pain and a very real chance at death. Ugh, my head feels so fuzzy. You might have to go with that worst case scenario. 2 days spent working my fingers to the bone, and yesterday's excitement about the ocean had finally caught up with me. My body felt heavier than ever, but going back to sleep would only cause my mana to regenerate even more. I needed to stay awake and think of ways to use it. I trudged to the dining hall for breakfast and saw that Ferdinand was eating already. As much as I tried to make my panda bus enormous, there was still only enough space. As much as I tried to make my panda house enormous, there was still only enough space for Ferdinand and me to have our own bedrooms and small areas to change clothes. We shared the same space at mealtimes. I sat down and started working through my breakfast, vegetables served with fruit juice. Unable to use rejuvenation potions, meals were the best way for me to restore my stamina. That didn't make the food any easier to eat, though. Ferdinand ate the last of his breakfast, then rose from his seat and moved to stand next to me. I could tell at a glance that you're feeling unwell. How bad is it? The fish betrayed me! Fool, your celebrations and conduits gave you a fever, and now you cannot stop shaking. Express that clearly next time. He touched my forehead and nape, his icy hands soothing my temperature. To think my idea failed this abruptly. How should we proceed, I wonder? My apologies, I can make it through this morning at least. You would go outside in your current state? Or what, do you intend to use a rejuvenation potion? I shook my head, enduring his stern glare. The very act of sleeping recovered enough of my mana to make me despair. Drinking a rejuvenation potion in my current state would make the task ahead of us so hopeless that I would probably crumble to the ground and sob in front of everyone. I meant to say that I could travel via Leslie. And where would you go? You need to use up the rest of your mana. What good would your high beast do? I desperately racked my brain. There had to be a way for me to expend my mana without wasting all my stamina. And then it hit me. How had we always dealt with problems we couldn't solve on our own? We got someone else to do them. I poured my mana into the other divine instruments, right? Anyone can use them as long as they know the prayer. We could get the others to drain the instruments for me, then I could simply refuel them. The divine instruments, Ferdinand asked, raising an eyebrow. I nodded. Though I would rather not burden them, they could restore the land with flute-trained staff, slay Fabius with Leidenschaft's spear, keep Leslie safe with Shutsaria's shield, and perform spring prayer in Bindewald, where there is no Gebe, with Geduld's chalice. I need only to refill those instruments each time they run dry. Can you think of anywhere devoid of mana but still teeming with Fabius? I needed to recover my stamina, but couldn't risk my mana rising even further. My idea sounded perfect if all went to plan. I could expand my divine power from the comfort of my bed. Additionally, I continued, Hartman and you can draw the healing magic circle used in the Academy's gathering spot, right? Could you stick them all over the place so I could pour my mana into them? Maybe I can rest this morning and then focus on the circles after lunch? You placed too much faith in your stamina, Ferdinand muttered. Still, I admit, your plan should work better than what we attempted yesterday. It does not bode well that you are coming up with so many solutions. What do you mean? His eyebrows drawn together, Ferdinand took one of the potions from his belt. It was long and slender like a test tube. He poured a drop of the red substance inside one of the spoons on the table. I would prefer not to elaborate. It was a troublesome habit of yours, one that I would rather you not relearn. More importantly, Ferdinand gave me the spoon, uttering not another word. I slowly brought it to my lips. It was only a single droplet, but an intense bitterness spread through my mouth, and my tongue sprocked in protest. I couldn't help feeling sorry for anyone who had the misfortune of drinking the whole vial. This is awful, I groaned. What does it do? Restore mana? At least warn me before you try burning a hole through my tongue. I wasn't ready at all. Ferdinand gave me an deeper frown, as though he'd tasted the potion with me. You should hardly have noticed a drop that small. Hartman, where are the other divine instruments? Did you return them to the temple? Hartman struck at his chest, brimming with pride. They are so crucial to Lady Rosemine's ceremonies that I decided to bring them with me. Impressive! That's a win for Hartman. Cornelius shook his head, seemingly exasperated. I was told you did return them, then rushed to retrieve them before we departed the temple. Is that so? Do you really think I would entrust divine instruments containing Lady Rosemine's divine power to others? Just like that, the two rotainers were glowering at each other. I dared not think what might happen to anyone who strayed into the crossfire. Enough, the details are irrelevant, Ferdinand interjected, waving the pair away. Rosemine, do you truly expect this to work? I mean, we don't have a choice in this matter. It's either that or you get a bad wound. The instruments took a good chunk of my mana before, and we shouldn't need to worry about them breaking. I can't think of any other way I could rest while still getting rid of my divine power. I see, Ferdinand nodded, then gave his temple a few contemplative taps as he always did when organizing his thoughts. Very well, we shall attempt your plan after breakfast. Once your retainers have eaten... Oh my god!
Do we have any chicken nuggets?
No!
I want some.
Get out!
Can you make some?
No!
She can't make any if she don't have any.
Ow! Get out!
You don't even know, Jessica. Oh, yeah, let's go up.
God, go away!
Oh, yeah, I think we do.
I'm not making anything. You already had lunch. They shall restore the land, hunt fey beasts, and perform spring prayer. I, meanwhile, will teleport to the castle. There are several matters I must take care of. Activate the teleportation circle for me, then rest until this afternoon, when we shall travel to Sideson's west side or Volkatag. There we shall replenish the earth and slay fey beasts. Having said his piece, Ferdinand turned on his heel and exited the dining hall. Justice dumped the plates he had started gathering into Sergius' arms and followed. I tried to get up as well, but Laisletta put her hands on my shoulders and urged me back into my seat. Lady Rosemond, you have not finished your breakfast. I ate the rest of my vegetables under my attendant's watchful gaze, then copied and pasted the teleportation circle from my book of Messinora. Ferdinand approached it with Justice Eckert and several other knights. He was leaving Sergius behind to prepare lunch and carry out other duties, and a few of the guards to protect Leslie and my retinue. Lady Rosemond, what should we do? My retainers asked. Angelica, I want you to guard my room, I said. You have keen eyes, so I trust no one will get past you. Lenore, stand outside with Shutsaria's shield and protect Leslie. Everyone else may choose between hunting fey beasts or guarding Hartmut while he carries out spring prayer. I would advise Matthias and Cornelius to hunt fey beasts while Lorenz and Clarissa accompany me, Hartmut replied. Would it not be better for Clarissa to hunt fey beasts, I asked, my eyes wandering to the woman in question. It didn't seem right to drag someone from Dunkelfelger into one of my new duchy's religious ceremonies. She shook her head. If you would allow me, I would much rather stay with Hartmut. Now that Jürgen Schmidt has a zet with the Gurtscheid, the country's perspective on religious ceremonies has changed, whether the nobles like it or not. We must continue to promote the ceremonies important, and what better way than for me, your loyal vassal, to participate? I even memorized the prayers. Partway through her speech, Clarissa had spared a brief glance at Arensbach's knights. Though she hadn't uttered a single falsehood, I could tell she was laying it on thick for those still resisting the temple and its ceremonies. She continued, even those in Dunkelfelger are performing religious ceremonies outside the Royal Academy. Spring prayer won't require us to enter any temples, so my involvement shouldn't pose any issues. Temples were still a sore spot for many duchies, but only because we hadn't yet revealed the true nature of the Bible's keys and the foundations. Once we did, the country's obs and their families would rush to start visiting them. There's no harm in letting her participate. She's so excited that she already memorized all the prayers. Beneath her outlandish and somewhat confusing veneer, Clarissa was a very competent scholar. I didn't want to admit it, but she was an excellent partner for Hartmut. Matthias and Cornelius are on Phoebe's duty, Angelica muttered, eyeing the pair enviously. She was so physically active that I suspected she would rather have gone hunting than stay home as a guard. It won't be Phoebe's hunting as you know it, I said. Their main objective is using the divine instruments to drain them of mana. I do not believe it will suit you. To use the divine instruments, my knights would need to pray. That wasn't true in all cases. If you took an instrument when it was empty and managed to fill it, then praying became unnecessary, but the instruments have already contained my mana. Using a simpler version of the prayer was an option if you formed the instrument from your staff, or used a face stone completely die with your mana, but again, that wasn't an option. Those tasked with slaying Phoebes would need to recite the entire prayer without errors. It had to be precisely memorized so as it was normally used when multiple blue priests and shrine maidens dedicated their mana. That said, if you are that eager to join them, I gave Angelica a serious look. Memorize the ceremony's prayers. Only then will you have permission to go hunting. Prayers? Never mind. You are right, Lady Rosamund. I shall protect your room with my life, as expected. If she'd actually agreed, I wouldn't have known what to think. While my knights checked and practiced the prayers necessary for the divine instruments, I asked Strahl to divide the Ahrensbach knights into squads. They were tasked with protecting the Phoebes hunters, those performing spring prayer, and my panda house. Farewell, Lady Rosamund. Do get some rest. My retainers took their leave, carrying the divine instruments Hartmut had given them. Fourth bell rang while I was lounging in bed. My fever had gone down a bit, but my rejuvenating mana had caused the divine power within me to swell, leaving me drowsy and a little queasy. It was bearable, but my fingers and toes were stinging. I'm starting to hate being in bed. I was feeling lethargic, but I got up nonetheless. Lisletta peered down at me with concern, then informed me that everyone had come back for lunch. The divine instruments have been emptied, she said. Should we bring them to you first? Yes, if you would. Lisletta and Clarissa brought in the instruments, allowing me to fill them one by one. My mana quality had returned to the same level as before I'd slept, which relieved me so greatly that I openly sighed. You look much better now, Lisletta said. Gracia has prepared some lunch if you're hungry. I would rather not bring it here, as you would need to eat in bed, but... We were asked to save as much time as we can. Ferdinand must be back then. There was only one person who would give an order like that. Hold on, let me just make sure I... Okay, here we go. If we ate in the dining hall, our retainers wouldn't be able to eat until we were done, but if we ate somewhere secluded, our rooms for example, they could all eat at once. It was a clever trick, but also painfully inelegant, so it had to be used in moderation. Lisletta took her leave, and Gracia entered with several dishes on a tray. They were arranged so that I could eat in bed. From what Justice told me, Lord Ferdinand was exceptionally busy this morning, Gracia said, noting his labors in the castle, and that he had returned with many of his work implements. He contacted the Giebs of Seitzen and Volkatag, sent an update to Ehrenfest, and spoke with Zent Eglantine. According to a report from Gieb Volkatag, there is a horde of ravenous Phoebes approaching Alexandria from the direction of Old Workstock. He believes they have come seeking mana now that the land is being filled with divine power. I was reminded of how restoring the Academy's gathering spots had attracted strong Phoebes hunting for mana, and these ravenous Phoebes are most likely to target me, I assume. My body contained an abundance of divine mana. From the Phoebes' perspective, I must have been a feast like no other. The plan is to head straight to the border between Seitzen and Volkatag to prevent the land you replenish from being drained again. In the meantime, you will remain under heavy guard. Seitzen was south of Griebel and Garden, the latter of which connected to the Ehrenfest-Ahrensbach border gate. Volkatag was west of Seitzen and shared its northern border with Ilgner and Griebel, the same border where Bonifacius had done battle when my team fought in Gerlach. Moving to protect the area from Phoebes would in turn protect Ehrenfest. Ilgner and Griebel are still recovering from the war, Gracia continued. For their sake and ours, we should draw the Phoebes into Alexandria before hunting them down. My thoughts turned to Ilgner, a rural province with a small population. Bridget had joined the early stages of the war as the Giebs' younger sister and sent important warnings to the capital. I wanted to ease their burden as much as I could. Not to mention, Volkatag must have plenty of the same Fae plants. Volkatag was connected to the same mountain range that included Mount Lowenberg, where I had acquired the Reisfalk eggs from my dream. It was rich with fire mana and dense forests, making it the perfect place to establish Alexandria's papermaking business. Though I doubt the nobles living there think too highly of Ferdinand and me, they sided with Georgine and agreed to invade Ehrenfest. Let's hope we can earn the Giebs' favor by restoring their land and slaying the Phoebes, I said. For the printing industry's sake, we'll need it. Lord Ferdinand proposed using Leidenschaft's spear several times in quick succession, though he said not to overdo it. The divinely charged instrument will ravage the land unless you use Flutein's staff promptly afterwards. That warning aside, he described this as the perfect opportunity for you to drain your mana. I certainly hope so. As it stood, replenishing the divine instruments was just enough to rid me of the mana that came back while I slept. I doubted that slaying a few babies was going to do much for me, but I swallowed those feelings and did my best to smile. No way was I going to complain when Grisha was doing her best to cheer me up. It is time, Ferdinand announced. Let us move to the border between Seidsen and Volkatag. Both Geeps know of our intentions. Of course, we can never hunt their Fabies and pour mana into their land without telling them. Divine power was cataclysmic in strength. In mere moments, it had changed the appearance of an entire ocean. We couldn't overstate its impact on barren earth, so it stood to reason that we'd contact the Geeps. If only the task ahead were as simple as just replenishing the earth. No sooner had Ferdinand given his explanation than he set out with his knights. I drove my panda house behind them. The area has been secured, came Lenore's voice. I opened the passenger door for her, and she climbed into my high beast. She grabbed the divine shield sitting on the back seat and prepared to leave it Angelica's signal. How does it look out there? I asked. The babies just keep coming. Not that I'm surprised. It will not be long before we need to use this shield. That said, Lenore paused and burst into laughter. The farmers below were most amusing. They clamored and pointed up at your high beast. Some rushed out of their homes and even started chasing after us. Rainbow Leslie didn't look the slightest bit like a regular high beast. He was enormous, the equivalent of a 2-story house soaring through the sky. It must have been one of the strangest things the commoners have ever witnessed. The whole rainbow thing really stands out, huh? I mused. I don't think the color is the problem. I think the size is the problem. It was then that Angelica shouted, "Fabies!" from outside. I opened the door to my panda bus without a second thought. Lenore climbed out, chanting the prayer for Shizaria's shield, and Angelica took her place. There are many strong Fabies here, she sharply informed me. Someone said the lack of mana must have driven them to start eating each other. I nodded and brought Leslie to a stop in midair. My instructions were to stay still until the fighting was over. My divine mana really must have made me the perfect feast because several strong Fabies started their attack. The sight would normally have made me cry out in fear, but on this occasion I actually wanted them to come closer to me. We're going to get so much use out of our divine instruments, I said. Lenore was using Shizaria's shield to prevent the Fabies from getting too close, while Matthias and Cornelius took turns blasting them with Leidenschaft's spear. As each one fell, Flutein's staff was used to heal the massive craters in the earth. My mana-packed instruments were doing a ton of work. For once, I'm glad the spear ends up drained of mana after a single use. Thank you, Leidenschaft! Lady Rosemond, we humbly request that you refill these for us, my knight asked, returning to Leslie once the instruments were all empty. We weren't moving very fast. Every time we slew some of the Fabies, we had to stop and wait until the land was healed, but that didn't bother me. I welcomed anything that would ease the pain of the divine mana swelling within me. We'd actually managed to drain even more than I'd expected. At least now I get to rest comfortably tonight. We continued to hunt Fabies while we traveled, then stopped at the border between Seidsen and Volkatag. Ferdinand immediately instructed Lenore to form Shizaria's shield. O goddess of wind, Shizaria, protector of all, and 12 goddesses who served by her side. The shield soon appeared around us, announcing the start of our break. I moved out of the driver's seat and entered the massive house behind me. From the outside, Leslie looked more like a huge tortoise with the red panda's head attached. This really isn't cute. It's comfortable, though. I went to the first floor living room, which was next to the dining hall, and saw Ferdinand giving instructions for what to do next. Rosemond, how are you faring? He asked when he noticed me. My nap this morning left me very refreshed, and pouring so much mana into the divine instruments has done me a world of good. I even regained my appetite. I see you are feeling a little better, Lesletta said with a chuckle. I was worried when you barely touched breakfast or lunch, but I shall see to it that you receive an especially large dinner. She spun on her heel and went to speak with the chefs. Lady Rosemond, if you would, Grisha said, indicating the nearby sofa. Once I was seated, Ferdinand approached and started another inspection. You seem better than you were this morning, he said, though I can hardly describe you as being in good health. I was feeling a lot less poorly now that my mana wasn't leaving me in agony. The pleasant chill of my head, doctor's hands, reminded me that my fever hadn't completely vanished, but still. I am not unwell enough to warrant that frown, Ferdinand. My appetite has returned. What more could we ask for? Do not overeat now that your hunger has returned, he dryly warned, wearing the plain expression of a doctor and tapping his temple. He probably thought I was being unladylike again, or that I shouldn't judge my health based on my hunger. I wasn't able to find out which because he then got up and took his leave. Your rudeness aside, I won't. As it turned out, my risk of overeating was even more non-existent than I expected. Though I wanted to eat, my body outright rejected whenever I tried to feed it. I ended up only eating the bare minimum. So I still can't eat even now that my appetite's back. This sucks. My retainer still needed to eat, so I went to the living room for some after-dinner tea. Ferdinand stopped me before I could even sit down. As I said, your health is anything but good. You should rest and not waste your time drinking tea. I would advise you to spend tomorrow using the chalice to drain your mana. Do I really have to rest, I asked? I would rather spend some time discussing my library city. I was told you brought schematics and was looking forward to going through them. Despite my best attempts to change his mind, Ferdinand shut me down. Return to your room for now. You are in a worse state than you realize. As you cannot drink potions, rest is your only way to get better. I don't want to sleep. By the time I wake up, my mana's going to be back where it started. Irritated at my never-ending mana reserves, I conceded and returned to my room. I clutched my empty stomach as I climbed into bed. Large-scale magic. Hey, don't go! I wake up in the dead of night to the sound of my own voice. There was sweat running down my back and my pillow was wet with tears. The most awful dream had jolted me awake, and worst of all, I couldn't even remember what it was about. I saw something, but wait. And who was I chasing? A grimace revealed my frustration. I'd come so close to recalling one of my lost memories, but not close enough. Lenore, who was on night watch, must have heard me wake because she soon peered through the bed curtain. You do not look well, Lady Rosemine. Would you like me to fetch the divine instruments? Lizette informed me that filling them with mana helped you feel somewhat better before, so we have them drained and ready for you. After dinner, my knights had gone out of their way to hunt more Fabies so they could empty the divine instruments for me. I was touched by their consideration and asked that the instruments be brought over. I'm hungry. I woke up feeling awful. My body feels so heavy. My mana's come back. I clutched my head and sat at the edge of my bed, channeling mana into the divine instruments Lenore brought me. That was when Gracia entered, dressed in simple clothes with her hair loosely bound. In my current state, only my namesworn could touch me when I wasn't wearing silver cloth, which put a huge burden on Gracia when it came to attendant work like bathing me or changing my clothes. Lenore had probably woken her up with the ordinance. I'm sorry to have woken you, Gracia, I said. You need not apologize. I was able to rest during the day. You appear to be drenched with sweat. Would you care for a bath? Just to wash him for now. You may use one of my face stones. I gestured to some of the many face stones packed with my mana that I was keeping in my room. Gracia took one and cleansed me as instructed. Once again, I channeled mana into the divine instruments as Lenore held them out to me. The Shitsuriya shield was last, but a strange sensation overcame me as I was filling it. I gazed around, keeping my hand on the shield. Is something wrong, Lady Rosemine? I sensed something below us, coming from the living room or dining hall, maybe. It feels like when Gervasio appeared from the tunnel behind the altar. Doesn't mean he broke into Leslie, does it? I don't remember hearing what happened to him. As I tried to pinpoint the source of the strange sensation, Lenore nodded as if she understood what was going on. She gave me a curious look, then giggled. We are inside your high beast, Lady Rosemine. I doubt anyone could get inside without your permission. You are most likely detecting Lord Ferdinand, who is working in the living room. If you are still curious, would you like to check? Unless you are feeling unwell after providing so much mana, it might be wise. From there, Lenore turned to her side. Gracia, my apologies, but could you change Lady Rosemine's clothes? Something loose-fitting that she could wear to bed. She will go back to resting when we return, and you may return to your room. My thanks. Gracia changed my clothes and dressed me in my silver cloak. She also put my hair up, though not too tightly. Lenore and I were already en route to the living room when Angelica rushed over, apologizing that she was late, and snatched me up off the ground. Please await my arrival next time, she said, her eyes sharp. You have been ordered not to walk anywhere. I chuckled and simply let her continue to carry me. Light bled out from the first floor living room. We were just about to go inside when Eckert stuck his head out and said, Lord Ferdinand permits you to enter. He knew I was coming, I asked. Who else radiates divine power as she walks about? Hold on, is divine power kind of like a cat bell? I went into the living room and saw that the space meant for post-meal tea had more or less been converted into an office. The private bedrooms I'd made were only large enough for a bed and somewhere to change one's clothes, so Ferdinand had brought his work from the castle here. So, were you unable to sleep, he pressed. An unpleasant dream woke me, though I don't remember the details. Then I channeled mana into a divine instrument and sensed something in this general area. It was like when Gervasio appeared atop the altar. I could feel someone, but their identity was obscured. It would seem she sensed you this time, Lord Ferdinand. Oh? Ferdinand gestured to the space beside him on the sofa, and at once Angelica deposited me onto the empty seat. I was a little unsettled, maybe because I was feeling something I'd never felt before. Ferdinand, what happened to Gervasio? I asked. Zent Eglantine's knights managed to capture him. His memories were read, and his official punishment would likely be announced during the Archduke Conference. So everyone's safe and sound, I sighed in relief. That's good to hear. I wouldn't have known what to do if he just somehow escaped. Everyone? No, not at all. Zent Eglantine and Lord Consort Anastasius each lost half their guard in the process. Wait, how? His mana was sealed. His staff was sealed. What the fuck did he do to kill each half of their guard? Ferdinand pulled several sheets of paper from the stack before him, seeming disinterested. That is for the new Zent and her husband to consider, should your focus not be on Alexandria. On closer inspection, the papers in his hand were the schematics for my new library city. All thoughts of Gervasio were zipped out of my mind. Though I wish to incorporate as many elements of your ideal city as I can, Ferdinand said, you were much too focused on his library. Well, of course, it's the most important part of my city. It's beating hard, if you will. What else would we focus on? Any city I constructed would need to have a giant library at its very center. Ferdinand grimaced. You plan to visit your library on a regular basis, I imagine. To minimize the danger of your moving between it and the castle, I would advise keeping the two close, both within the noble's quarter to be precise. The laboratory will remain there as well. One thing I will not permit, however, is your desire to connect the castle and the library with teleporters. I shall arrange for you to have separate sleeping quarters in the latter. That is all. Teleporters will make traveling between the castle and the library a breeze, but their omission didn't surprise me. Go away. The kind meant for transporting humans could only be used with the Ops' permission. If for whatever reason I elected to use it alone, my knights would need to race all the way to its twin to reunite with me. And of course they would face punishment for losing sight of their charge. Personal use teleporters are out of the question, Ferdinand concluded. Instead, I would propose another approach. Back in Arenvest, the higher one's status, the further north one lived in the nobles' quarter. Alexandria would tweak this system by having the highest-ranked nobles live closest to the city center, ensuring that their houses were as close to the library as one could get. Ferdinand went on to explain that by separating the library from the castle's bookroom, we can make it more accessible for baptized children and apprentices. Really? But what you just proposed only benefits nobles, I said. The library is too close to the castle for us to not impose restrictions, especially when you, the Ob, intend to use it so frequently. For security reasons, we cannot allow too many vagrants to enter. I get that, but this is my duchy. Here in Alexandria, shouldn't everyone have access to books? Considering the current literacy rate among commoners, I think you are getting ahead of yourself. What you are proposing is a long-term goal. Even if we were to enforce it from the start, the pushback from the nobility would be immense. And also the fact that, aren't you planning on having a lot of bookstores set up in the city too, I'm assuming? So people can go and buy books, they can learn to read, and then go maybe check out the library for other books that bookstores don't have? Or they just want to, visit the library? That is a long-term thing, that's not short-term. That might have been true, but he was straying too far from my vision. This was too important for me to compromise. I opened my mouth to protest, but Ferdinand raised a hand to stop me. Let me finish. Alexandria will come to be known as the Duchy of a Divine Avatar. If we consider the entire city, the commoners included, then it would make more sense to put the temple first, not your library. And as we are creating everything from scratch, we can incorporate the strengths of Arenvest's temple. According to Ferdinand, we would build a temple between the nobles' quarter and the lower city so that nobles and commoners could go there. It would contain workshops, an orphanage, and a place for blue priests to live, as well as a shrine for rituals and praying to the gods. Moreover, he continued, by allowing the wealthier commoners to attend the temple classrooms you once proposed, we can transform the temple into a library of sorts that even commoners can visit. The literacy rate in the lower city will improve, the commoners will learn how to retrieve books, and only then will we allow them in the main library near the castle. Keeping the masses on our side is crucial. If we are too heavy-handed, we will only inspire resistance to what we hope to achieve. To prevent our books from being stolen, we will implement the same deposit system as the Royal Academy's library. Those who couldn't pay wouldn't be able to borrow. Ferdinand expected my library to be members only for the first stretch of our journey, so we need to pace ourselves. Yes! I shouldn't have been surprised. Developments on this scale have taken hundreds of years to back on Earth. As much as I wanted to skip ahead whole generations, our operations were limited until printing became more widespread, and the cost of books plummeted. Ferdinand was posing the first step in our plan to make a library that even commoners could use. Opening the bookroom and temple classrooms to the wealthy sounds like an excellent idea, I said. The children of merchants who do business with nobles will rejoice to have somewhere to practice carrying themselves. I am told there are few such instructors among the lower class. Oh, did you hear that from the planting company? Ferdinand asked, eyeing me carefully. Was he prying for fragments of my lost memories? Though my thoughts were blurred and unreliable, I dug through them as best I could. No, they were still the Gilberta Company at the time. My attendants were in the orphanage director's chambers and... I think I remember them training waiters for the Italian restaurant. Leon's face arose in my mind. He was an apprentice back then. There must have been others there too, but I couldn't remember them. As I continued to rack my brain, I remembered that Leon had always grimaced at me. I wondered why that was. I see, Ferdinand replied. Is there a reason you want children who see connections with nobles to be able to attend temple classes? Oh, right. Once it becomes normal for merchants with noble connections to frequent the temple's classes, crass people trying to secure patrons will attempt to follow suit. That much is clear from the Gutenbergs. Ferdinand nodded and wrote something on a nearby sheet of paper. Moving on, he said, though your planning was fascinating on a conceptual level, when put into practice, the library and printing industry would take far too much precedence. We must take a more realistic approach. First, we should rebuild the areas severely damaged during the Lanzanavians' attacks. The port, Noble's Quarter, and Temple to name a few. Then the guilds. You will want to hear their thoughts while finalizing the plans, I imagine. Then Ferdinand gave a slight smirk. This sounds like an excellent opportunity to train the scholars who are only used to giving orders, not receiving them. While it was true that we needed scholars who could work with commoners, while also completing their duties, that's not a reason to complain. Performing a large-scale Entwickeln to rebuild the entire city at once would put a tremendous strain on the commoners, I said. We should arrange meetings with them and then schedule the reconstruction piecemeal. Hartman and Justice had the most experience with commoners, so we should assign one of them to train the scholars. As for the architecture, I would rather we base it on existing Ahrensbach buildings. The climate here is not the same as in Ehrenfest. Bach's current architecture must have come about for a reason, I thought. Maybe the style used in Ehrenfest would make summers here unbearable. I was going to reuse the schematics the Planton and Gilberta companies provided for the Entwickeln and Groschel, Ferdinand said. Advise them against it, but leave the final decision in their hands. It was important the architecture matched the climate, but the merchants would certainly have their own preferences for the layout and the rooms and such. We will prioritize their needs above all else. I continued. The Gutenbergs cannot settle here until they have places to live and do business. We should put them in the same part of the lower city as the Merchants Guild. I suspect I already know the answer considering how much attention you are paying to the details, but have you considered where their families are going to live? Yes, of course. Ferdinand cast his eyes down, then suddenly rolled up the schematics for my new city. Hey, I cried, I wasn't done looking at those. Spread them out again. That is enough for now, lest you grow so excited that you end up bedridden again. It is almost first bell. Are you content enough to go back to sleep? I shook my head. Sleeping will make my mana come back. I'd rather hold out for as long as I can. And what of your hunger? It must be worse than before. You did not eat much for someone whose appetite has returned. I nodded glumly. Do you have any idea for what I can do? Dinner hadn't done much to satiate me, and now I was hungrier than ever. Some, Ferdinand replied. He scanned the room before pausing and using a washing on his hands. Then he poured just a drop of red potion onto his fingertip. Ferdinand, I asked, staring at him in surprise as he came closer. He pressed the drop of potion against my lips, then pulled away. Is it bitter? He asked, wiping his finger with a handkerchief. I licked my lips, expecting the same sharp taste as before. No, not very. It didn't taste of much of it at all. Though my tongue did sting a little. Good, your hunger might be connected to the amount of mana you lost yesterday. Your body is attempting to warn you that your life's in danger, an indication that you have almost been drained. Yay! It makes sense that nobody else had connected my hunger to my dearth of mana. Any other noble would have drunk a rejuvenation potion long before their reserves dropped this low. My circumstances were special in that I needed to expend my mana practically non-stop. I wasn't even giving my body time to recover, so I just reject all the mana that came back overnight. I, too, felt something akin to starvation when I was trapped inside Ahrensbach's replenishment hall, Ferdinand explained. I suspect it was the result of my mana decreasing slowly, rather than all at once. We should drain the rest of yours in one go if we can. Unless you wish to endure an immense amount of pain. It's gonna get even worse? Oh, gods, I muttered, instinctively stepping away from Ferdinand. I couldn't take any more of this. Not if you follow my advice. The more divine power we remove, the less it will hurt when your mana is re-dyed. I see. He seemed strangely motivated, but I wasn't going to question it, not when there was a risk of my situation getting even worse. You asked me to draw healing circles for you, did you not? Could you not use that duplication spell of yours to create several at once? As a result, the spell does not require the names of the gods. I cocked my head and thought, it doesn't, no, and the risk seems reasonably small. If nothing else, I won't need to worry about another wayward whirlpool. That said, the spell only works on surfaces with mana. We don't have a sheet of fresh fey paper large enough for me to use several magic circles at once. Would the ground not suffice? Barren though it might be, it does contain some mana. He was right, the earth did contain mana. The magic circles in the Royal Academy's gathering spots were carved straight into the ground, so it wasn't the craziest idea. It sounds feasible, I mused. Still, I don't know how much I can expand the circles. We never had time to experiment with changing their size. Ah, yes, Ferdinand muttered, his brow furrowed. He must have remembered that it was his decision for us to postpone our research. I thought we could restore Alexandria with a circle as large as the one above the Royal Academy, but perhaps that's too much even for your abnormal copy and place spell. Excuse me! You should consider your own era when... First... Hold on. Yeah, you should consider your own abnormality before slandering my work, I shot back. Besides, have you forgotten that the magic circle above the academy was made by Earwearmen and the gods back in ancient times when the gods were much closer to Jurgenschmidt than they are now? Long ago, Azent had secured the god's aid through Iwerman, then combined several magic circles based on Iwerman's face stone to establish what we now knew as the Royal Academy's grounds. Creating our own massive circle for Alexandria sounded outright impossible. Something on that scale could never be performed in the modern era when words failed me as inspiration struck, or maybe it could. Stop, I cannot permit you to seek help from Iwerman or the gods. Let us think of another method. Would it not be more reliable for you to expand the face stone for this high beast to its maximum size, inscribe it with healing magic circles, then extend its range as much as you can using Clarissa's magic? Despite having come up with the idea in the first place, Ferdinand withdrew at the slightest indication that I might get the gods involved. I found a thought, then formed my Cruciashite and started searching through it. Well, it seems we won't need to ask you, Iwerman, or the gods for help, I said, not when you have fragments of the former. Ah, those! Ferdinand raised an eyebrow at me. And we have more than enough divine mana right here. I spread my arms wide. Considering how much anguish it's caused me, I think I deserve to use some as I please. Not to mention, you're interested in reviving magecraft lost since ancient times, are you not? Yes, he is. As much as he probably wouldn't say so. Ferdinand grimaced in response to my argument, but took out some plain sheets of paper nonetheless. His interest was clear, even as he muttered, we do not have time to research this in full. It shouldn't be too hard if, rather than combining circles with various elements and purposes as I did at the Academy, we simply expand a restoration circle. Here, look. I presented a section of my book that described the ancient method of performing large-scale magic. Ferdinand peered down on it, then began dissecting the complex magic circles. He couldn't use his own book when our retainers weren't around. I see, he said. If this decides the range, we could cover all of Alexandria by placing the center of our circle at the foundation and using the border gates as endpoints. Can my fragments of Iwerman take the place of his face stones? They won't be as durable, that is, they won't last very long, but that shouldn't be an issue if we use my divine power to turn them into face stones. Ferdinand shook his head. Looking at these instructions, it would suit our needs better to keep the materials as they are, especially when this constitutes a single use. Moreover, as we have neither the time nor the resources to experiment, we should recreate the original magic circle as faithfully as we can. We cannot risk failure. Before I could even respond, Ferdinand set about writing. His pen moved at an exceptional speed, producing a long list of disconnected words. A memo, perhaps? Rosemine, he continued, not even looking up from his paper. After breakfast, dismiss your high beast and come with me to the castle. I need you to place this magic circle inside the fragments of Iwerman stashed in my hidden room. Otherwise, preserve your stamina. My scholar shelf spread the word to the Geeves while Hartmut returns the divine instruments to the temple. Order Roderick and Clarissa to inform those of the nobles' quarter. As you wish. Lenore Eckert, station knights from our guard at each border gate. You may decide who is best suited to the task. Once you are done, inform the other retainers that we are returning to the castle after breakfast. Yes, sir. Ferdinand was giving out a fresh wave of orders when his voice started to sound distant. An uncomfortable heat was spreading through me. Uh-oh. I clapped my book of Messinora shut, conscious that I must have overused it. A look of concern on his face, Ferdinand touched my forehead, then my wrist. His features twisted in a grimace. Though I can prepare the border gates on my own, I will need your divine mana and your duplication spell when we make the magic circle. The process will take far too long otherwise. That said, no matter how quickly we work, it will not be ready for activation until tonight. Can you endure one more day? Of course, I replied with a smile. Compared to when I thought I might be stuck like this forever, a single day is nothing. Ferdinand knit his brow. Do not overtax your strength. We will need to brew when we reach the castle, so get some rest before then, and we'll need some too. His words hung in the air for a moment before he briskly started putting away his paperwork. Eckert provided some assistance. I'd gone to bed straight after dinner, so I wasn't feeling too tired, but what about Ferdinand? He hadn't slept from what I could tell, and would probably resume his work as soon as he'd eaten breakfast. He said the circle wouldn't be ready until tonight at the earliest. I just worry he won't sleep at all. For all my lounging in bed, I wasn't able to get much rest. My mana had recovered as expected, and the sensation reminded me of the days I'd spent battling my devouring heat. I remembered the pain and discomfort I'd endured, unable to even to leave my bed as my mana swelled, but for some reason I couldn't remember anyone else who might have been around at that time. When will my memories come back? Ferdinand had said they would return for the Newszet's coronation, but that was before the gods plagued me with their divine power. My recovery was more important, I understand that, but I wasn't getting any better. The pain racking my body had found a friend in my starvation. I didn't want to die without remembering those I cared about. Well, today's the day. I'm getting rid of this divine power no matter what. To keep fear from taking over, I urged my thoughts in another direction. Was the requirement for nobles to keep their emotions under control at all times a hangover from when they were closer to the gods, and rampaging mana was more dangerous? After breakfast, I returned to the Okay, after breakfast I returned to the castle. My retainers started carrying out their instructions while I worked with Ferdinand in his hidden room. He used a Lonzanoff knife to shave down and gradually flatten the Wehrman's white branches, onto which I could paste our healing magic circles. These branches sure are small, I mused aloud. Maybe we could use normal-sized magic circles, then figure out a way to shrink them down? Just the thought of needing to draw super tiny circles made my head ache. Ferdinand gave me a chilly look. Are you even more of a fool than I thought? There is no time. Give up and draw them. I don't wanna. I'm bad at precise, detailed drawings. This is your area of expertise, so why don't you do it? As much as I wanted to complain, Ferdinand was busy enough pouring face stones, gold dust, and expensive-looking ingredients into his brewing pot. I couldn't ask him to draw the circles for me. My only choice was to manage on my own, but as I steeled my resolve, a piece of fey paper flew my way. See if you can duplicate this, Ferdinand said, having thrust the paper toward me. Woohoo! I knew I could count on you, Ferdinand. Overjoyed, I accepted the paper, a completed magic circle, and got straight to work duplicating it. As the basis of our grand creation, I would need to prepare some circles for healing, and others that would allow us to use the Wehrman's branches. In my current state, it took barely any time at all. All done. And start preparing the face stones that will serve as receptacles for the divine power and need to be in contact with the Wehrman's fragments for the spell to work. I see. So I just need to stick them together, right? That should make them easier to carry. I gathered together the omni-elemental face stones for the border gates, channeled my divine mana into them, and then mashed them into discs. I needed a way to keep your Wehrman's branches stable, and no better shape had come to mind. I took the branches and started inserting them into the discs. They looked comfortable enough, and there was no way they would come apart from the face stones now. In my opinion, it was a huge success. To create our giant circle, we will place a large face stone at the foundation, the center of our magic, and a smaller one at each of the border gates. We had already crushed the face stone I used to make Rainbow Lessie. It would serve as our main receptacle, so we turned it into a large plate and pierced it too, with one of a Wehrman's branches. All that remained was to draw the magic circle on its underside. Done, I announced. I used the face stones to lock the divine branches in place. Is that good or what? Somehow, I doubt that was mentioned in your book of Masonori. Your methods continue to be as lighthearted and as abnormal as ever. I would never have come up with such an idea. Your praise truly honors me, I replied. For the sake of my mental health, I would interpret his remarks as a compliment. If you are done, rest on the bench. You look terribly unwell. I would rather you return to your room and spend some time in bed. But you did not bring enough retainers with you. By holding up with Ferdinand and assisting him with his work, I was giving my retainers to stay put. Everyone but the few guards by the door could rest. You need sleep a lot more than I do, I said. I do not have the luxury. There is too much I must prepare before we can drain the last of your mana. If all goes to plan, I will get a bell to rest before the circle's activation. I should not need any more than that. I strongly disagree, but okay. Ferdinand must not have slept a wink last night. He had dark bags under his eyes and a weary look on his face. Yet he continued to work, darting from one brew to the next, even as our retainers took breaks. Given that he now had the royals under his thumb, he could easily have cast me aside and returned to Ehrenfest. Instead, he had chosen to bear these hardships with me. Ferdinand, why are you doing all this for me? I asked. Come again? He sounded genuinely bewildered, so I did my best to elaborate. You haven't sworn undying and maddening loyalty to me like Hartmut, and when you gave me your name, it wasn't to escape death like Matthias. You know I'd return it in a heartbeat, so why haven't you asked for it back yet? I can't grasp the meaning of you doing all these things for me. Ferdinand seemed to ponder the question. I chose to stay with you because we are like family. Is that not obvious? I didn't know what to say. In what world would someone do all this for their family? Oh my god. Because she doesn't remember her family, she doesn't understand the concept anymore of why she does all this. Why she saved Ferdinand in the first place? But isn't that strange? My father of Karstedt would do anything for Sylvester as the Knight Commander, and my brother Eckert would do anything for you. But I can't imagine either one of them going to such great lengths for my sake. I could see Mother Cornelius getting involved to some extent, but they would still need to conform to the standards of noble society. No matter how much you cared about someone, your house and duchy come first. It was unthinkable that someone would pick a fight with the gods or give their name for the sake of another person. Besides, I continued, you put me under your protection all that time ago, didn't you? That puts you even further from being my true family. Ferdinand grimaced. Speaking of true family, yes. No, never mind, he said at length, shaking his head. He looked wounded. Ferdinand. Oh. Oh dear. Having kept a close eye on the expenditure and recovery of your mana over the past few days, I can say this with all certainty. Activating a magic circle that covers all of Alexandria will drain whatever remains of your mana. Go rest in your room. You no longer need to fear sleep. Ferdinand contacted the guards stationed outside, told them to summon Angelica, and rushed me out of the room. He's chasing me out! Though he looked calm, I could sense something bubbling beneath the surface. It wasn't anger. Rejection, maybe? Hurt? In any case, I must have been to blame. Yes! You hurt his feelings! Or his pride, or something. You hurt something in him. Let me know what y'all think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because you guys sometimes give me insight into things I didn't even realize. My memories of him were completely intact, right? The more I thought about it, the more it felt like something important was missing. Ferdinand turned on his heel, about to return to his hidden room. I wanted nothing more than to reach out and grab him to ask him what I'd done wrong, but instead just watched as he took his leave. I squeezed my eyes shut as Angelica took me in her arms. Once again, I woke up to the most wretched pain. I muttered a few curses at the divine power swelling in my chest and asked Grisha to help me change. We would perform our large-scale healing immediately after dinner. Time seemed to pass in an instant, and it wasn't long before I arrived at the hall containing Alexandria's foundation. Ferdinand was carrying me. We entered through a door in the Ob's room that only the Ob's key could open. I thought only the Ob was supposed to come here, I said. You are correct, but I cannot leave you on your own when you are about to drain your mana. I also hold the key we used to get here. The one I took from Detlinde. If not even that convinces you, then you would do well to remember that, at least in terms of mana, I am the current Ob of Arensbach, not you. Yeah, considering you don't have your own mana at the moment. Indeed, that peculiarity in my divine power was the reason I couldn't carry out my duties as Ob. Only by performing our large-scale magic with the foundation as its center will we both drain my mana and re-dye me. Ferdinand, have you not considered taking the role of Ob Alexandria, I asked, kneeling before the white branch that had already been put in place. You can make the laboratory of your dreams. There is no need. You have already agreed to make it for me, have you not? Yes, but you could turn Alexandria into a city of research, I exclaimed. What happened to your ambition? Your desires? It feels like I'm becoming the new Lord of Evil. Is that so? Ferdinand replied, his lips curling into a nefarious smirk. My desires have a greater hold on me now than ever before. Wait, are you scheming to take over my city? To bring all the books in the world to one place so you can add them to your collection? How dastardly! No. That'd be your scheme. Do not project your own ridiculous desires on me. Huh? But doesn't everyone dream of conquering all the libraries? No, that's only you. You're the only one who does that. Ridiculous or not, I wouldn't be deterred. As one of my first acts as a new Ob Alexandria, I would ask Eglantine for transcriptions of everything being moved from the Palace Library to the Royal Academy. To achieve what I desire, I must first rid you of that divine mana, Ferdinand said. Let us begin. Okay, what do you desire then, dude? I realized then that he had made the last of our preparations while we spoke. I touched the plate-shaped face stone which shone like with a rainbow light and channeled my mana into it. Liquid rose from its surface until it resembled a water mirror. The water stopped just before it could run over, and the Werriman's pure white branch turned into a rainbow of colors. Once it was fully dyed, a pillar of omni-elemental light shot up toward the ceiling. That light should turn into a circle that covers all of Alexandria, but inside the Foundation's hall, there was no way for us to check. Or so I thought. The water began to waver, and a view of the outside appeared on its surface. Had the light passed all the way through the castle? Ferdinand, this is... Focus, the circle is not yet complete. Right. The mirror went from showing... Damn it. Were a mass of nobles in the castle, raising and waving their staffs to the brightly lit nobles' quarters, the commoners' lower city, and the pitch-dark ocean. Hold on. Oh, from showing a map. Okay, to the... The latter was only dark at first. Of course, the rainbow light soon reached its surface, revealing an expanse of swaying waves. I was starting to wonder how far the light would take us when it arrived at the border gate nearest to the country gate. Straw and the other knights stationed there were gawking straight at us. They must have seen the magic circle being drawn in the sky, Ferdinand mused. Their expressions are rather foolish, but can you blame them, dude? Were I in their shoes, I'd probably look even dumber. Indeed, could you at least pretend to disagree? The water mirror passed the awestruck knights to show us a Werriman's branch sitting inside the border gate. Then it returned to the sky. The heat within me faded a little as the circle continued to stretch across Alexandria, draining more of my mana in the process. Where's it going this time, I asked. To the Dunkelfelder border gate, most likely. It is closer than the others. Eckert and several other guards were stationed there. Will we see them stare at us with funny looks on their faces? I certainly hope so, but they weren't the only ones at the gate. Dunkelfelder's knights had rushed to the forefront of the group and were enthusiastically thrusting their fingers up at the sky. Eckert was doing his best to stop them from touching a Werriman's branch. Ah, of all the gates, this one might be the hardest to protect. Godspeed, Eckert. I couldn't help but laugh as the light moved on to the next gate. More of my mana was sucked out, and the hunger I was feeling transformed into starvation. My head started to spin. We must be approaching Old Workstock, I said, trying not to think about my health. Most likely, Lorenz and the others are protecting that branch. It will not be particularly exciting. Can we expect to see knights from Old Workstock? Ferdinand shook his head. I closed the gate when placing a Wereman's branch. You will reopen it with Lord Trollquaw after the Archduke Conference when he has been made the new Ob Workstock. In hindsight, closing the gate made perfect sense. Some of Old Workstock's nobles had participated in the invasion of Ehrenfest, and those who had supported Georgine and Detlinde had gleefully obstructed Ferdinand while spreading unpleasant rumors about him. Oh, it's Lorenz! He and several other knights were in a dark, barely lit room, standing in a protection circle around their branch of a Wehrman. As they looked up at us, their faces showed not jaw-dropping shock, but admiration. No particularly embarrassing faces this time, I sighed. The area around their gate has little in the way of obstructions. They must have an excellent view of the circle spreading across the sky. Ah, one of the knights just started praying. I guess Hartmut's lessons went a little too far. They did not go far enough, in my opinion. No, this is plenty. As soon as that thought crossed my mind, another branch appeared in the mirror, and the light returned to shooting through the sky. My mana was sucked out again, and the heat causing me such discomfort vanished. It felt less like my fever had gone down, and more like my mana was running so low that my body couldn't produce any warmth at all. But I can't stop now. We soon arrived at Frembeltag's border gate when Matthias and some other guards were stationed. There were knights from Frembeltag there too, but we weren't welcomed with the same crazed enthusiasm we'd seen from Dunkelwalder. Instead, they stared up at the sky as if overwhelmed. That's rare, I said. Matthias actually looks proud. Ever since that incident with his father, he'd spent his time frowning or wearing some other bitter, tortured expression. If you wish to see it become the norm, then become someone he can feel proud to serve. That sounds tough. I don't want him to be miserable, but I plan to devote all my time to overseeing my library and reading books. All of my time not spent carrying out my duties, of course. Good grief, Ferdinand uttered with a wry smile. You never change, do you? He turned to look at me, then took in a sharp breath. I was in such an awful state that not even he could mask his concern. We're nearly done, I said, stopping him when he reached out to check my temperature. Ehrenfest's border gate was especially close to Frembeltag's, and it appeared in the water mirror before long. Cornelius was stationed there, to my understanding. Grandfather? To my surprise, Bonifacius was at the gate. He had picked up Cornelius, an adult male and a knight at that, and was now swinging him about. What the fuck, Bonifacius? It couldn't have been as easy as he was making it look. I contacted Sylvester around noon, Ferdinand explained, exasperated. Bonifacius declared that he would watch our work from the border gate since he was unable to attend the Royal Academy's transference ceremony. I did not expect him to arrive in time. If nothing else, we were right to station Cornelius there. Bonifacius seems much too excited, and nobody else would have been able to contain him. I tried to laugh, but it came out as a scratchy croak. My dizziness got worse, and my breathing became so shallow that I actually had to focus on inhaling enough air. My hands and feet were going numb. Just a little longer, Rosemine, Ferdinand said. He was right beside me, but it sounded as though he was all the way on the other side of the room. My vision blurred. Damn it. Goddamn. In the final stretch, the light just needed to pass back over the dark waters and return to the castle. I tried to reassure Ferdinand that I was fine, but my voice revealed the truth, and my hold on the facestone plate weakened. Rosemine, lean against me if you must. Just keep your hands on the plate. Ferdinand sat beside me, placed a hand atop both of mine, and wrapped an arm around me as my body went limp. He was normally cold to the touch, but now felt burning hot. My eyelids drooped, though I was still clung to consciousness. O goddess of Waterflew train, bringer of healing and change, O 12 goddesses who serve by her side, please hear my prayer and lend me your divine strength. Ferdinand started chanting a quick prayer. We must have completed the circle. I waited nervously for the divine power within me to respond, but nothing happened. I was almost completely out of mana. Though my body was cold and even moving was too much for me, relief spread through my heart when I realized it was finally over. Ferdinand, the rest is in your hands. As he continued to chant the prayer, the world around me faded into darkness. And the epilogue. But that's going to have to wait until next time. I will see you all in the next video where we finish this book.